Welcome to We Drink and We Watch Things, or if you're coming back, welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. This is our second episode, hopefully, we hope. And if you haven't met us before, I'm Mackenzie.
My name's Lemar.
And we're here because we like movies. I feel like that's probably obvious, but we watch a lot of movies.
Especially this month.
Yeah. This is a tight schedule month, including for this gig. Sorry to give you quite the list of movies to watch, but yeah. So this month, obviously, was our kickoff, which is my favorite month, Halloween, spooky season. Obviously, the best time to kick off a podcast, but we also specifically wanted to have an extra special Halloween edition.
Like the multiple Halloween edition. We think.
Yeah, this is our second Halloween edition, but this is going to come out on Halloween. So this is the extra special one. And so this week, what we wanted to do was talk about a top 10 movie list that's not a top 10 list.
Yeah, what we found is there are plenty of lists out there. If you Google top 10 Halloween movies or October movies, you're going to get all sorts of different lists. And we had brainstormed during our last episode that would be something we should go through a list and evaluate it. And we had lots of options. And you sent me one that was the most divisive thing I've ever seen. And
I had strong feelings about it myself. Yeah. Also, I think I sent it to you mid reading the list because it was here. We were live. And I was like, I had not gotten not a spoiler, I should say. I had not gotten to number 1 yet, for example. And we will all be alarmed by what that is.
Yeah.
And yeah, as we were together reading this list, we were having some strong reactions, which we thought would make for the perfect conversation, really.
Yeah, the initial thought was, screw this. This is a terrible list. We're not going to talk about this. And then the more that I thought about it, I was like, that'll make for a pretty entertaining episode. And I will say that I ended up not hating everything on the list. And it's not even that I hate. It's just it doesn't crack my personal top 10. And not even that, but just I don't think it should be. Some of them I don't think should be in anybody's top 10. But this person at CBS, I guess, decided they're in theirs.
Yeah, we have a lot of opinions about this. And we're extra grateful at this time for our drink of the week.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're going to need it to get through this one. And actually, this is normally my shtick, making the cocktails, but Lemar volunteered this week. What did you make us?
Yeah, so the reason this week's mine because it's only 3 ingredients. It's a peanut butter chocolate old fashioned. Discovered this at a bar called Dumont's Down Low in downtown Austin and started making it at home. So it's really simple. You need a shot of your favorite bourbon or whiskey. I wouldn't use anything too high end because then I guess you're diluting good whiskey. But also a shot of Screwball, peanut butter whiskey, and then a few dashes of chocolate bitters. You can get those pretty much in any...
It's like drinking candy. I told you this earlier.
It's got a little sting to it, but the peanut butter and chocolate is a little too
much.
Yeah.
I also love bourbon and whiskey in general, so like I can take the hit, but it's like drinking candy. And what's funny too is that this how I date a bartender. I told him like before I had this half out of my mouth, he was like, "So is he using Screwball?"
Hell yeah, I'm using Screwball.
And I was like, apparently so. He knew it immediately, but it's delish. I'm a big fan. So thank you for volunteering this week.
Anytime.
Again, I'm going to throw it back. We might have to pause to make another with this list.
Yeah, I'm going through this quickly, so we should start talking more in depth.
To be honest, before we get a little too drunky to keep talking about it. So speaking of the list, okay, as we said, we picked it because it's controversial, but let's talk about like how this fucker sourced this list, because I think that's one of the biggest reasons it's so controversial.
Yeah.
It's from another list.
Yeah. So this we found on CBSnews.com. Very reputable, I guess, depending on where you lean politically, a very reputable
if
news
you don't think
site.
CBS is reputable, you probably are not listening to this podcast.
So I found this and it was like, okay, CBS made a list. No, you go to this and I'm sure we'll find a way to link this out from social media if people want to see it for themselves.
Sure.
But the caveat at the very beginning is we made this list based off of a bigger list from our sister site, E-Online. It's okay, an entertainment channel, that kind of makes sense, or like like entertainment blog, I guess. And then you get even deeper into it, and they say we made it a point to include both family films for Halloween and the best horror movies of all time. So not necessarily just films that had to do with Halloween. It's okay, I'm still pretty much on board. I like a little bit of a variety. And then you read a little further and they caveat again with, we also only wanted to put movies on here that are currently streaming. And the problem is this article, let me see, was written 2021. Yeah. So newsflash, Joel, you might want to update.
Changed.
Yeah, things have changed. A lot has changed in the world since 2021.
I really want to email him now and be like, how would you change this list, Joel, whatever the hell your name is?
JOAL, if you want to write an email.
JOAL, if you want to know. Because, I also, I own an alarming amount of movies, which I have a wall of 600 plus movies. That's not including digital copies. And a couple of these I did not own. And this is a particularly favorite genre of mine. And then they were not streamable. Like some of these I had to pay for. I was super thankful for my Amazon slow shipping credits this week, I will say, because I was like, all right, I'm going to use that digital credit to rent this.
For the record, I too paid for all of the movies that I couldn't stream. I paid money, cash, American dollars.
Nothing illegal or untoward happened at all.
And also, this is going to be a favorite running joke of mine in the podcast because every time Mackenzie references her movie wall, she points to, not only can you not see it because this is a podcast, spoiler, but it's also on the other side of a wall, so even I can't see it. So she's pointing.
Listen, you know where it is. It's like an altar. You should show some respect. And for those of you who can't see it, same thing, social, we're going to share it with you there because you deserve to see the gloriousness of this wall.
Okay, praise be. But so we went through this list individually. We don't really... And the deal was we were going to decide on our own, hey, which do you agree with? Which are in your top 10? For me personally, when I made mine, it wasn't just my favorite 10 scary movies or even my favorite 10 Halloween. Like I wanted to keep that variety. So I kept a couple movies, I added new ones, and I wanted a little bit of comedy, a little bit of horror, a little bit of family friendly. So that was the route that I took. But then Mackenzie, you also in your time did your own.
Yeah, so I did my own list, but I also did basically, here are egregious, offensive ones on this list, just essentially how I felt about it. And I started to just replace those. And then, of course, I couldn't stop, basically. It was more like, okay, but this one's missing, but this one's missing. So it really was very gut instinct. I will not say at all that it was comprehensive because I still at this moment feel like I am missing something. And maybe you'll bring it up, in which case I will feel such relief. But yeah, I have a hodgepodge of a list of, depending on time, we may or may not get to them all.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each movie on this list. Did we decide? I mean, do you just want to go from 10 to 1 or do you want to split it into family movies versus horror? It's really your call.
I think the family movie idea is great. I think we should start with the family ones, mostly because those are some of the ones I find egregious.
Okay.
So let's knock them the fuck out.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned. So let's not go in order. We'll tell you the ranking that they are as we go through them. And also, again, we'll share this on social so you can see it in order if you're OCD like me. I completely understand. But I will say, I'm just going to kick it off with the one that I feel like I just, first of all, you're going to be shocked at the things that I haven't seen on this list, I think, because generally I see most things. But this one, maybe not so much, but this one particularly I hated was Halloween Town. And I feel like that is going to offend a lot of people.
I don't care. I don't care. If you are offended right now, if you are triggered, I watched Halloween Town for the first time. And I did not enjoy myself.
I hated it. I did not enjoy myself. Here's my thing. That was like a Disney Channel kid thing. You know what I mean? Like, that was definitely a Disney Channel movie, and we did not have cable. Okay, I was watching Pink Panther reruns for 20 years. I don't know what was on the Disney Channel at any given time, but when I looked it up, it was like Disney Channel presents, and I was like, oh, this is why I haven't seen this shit. And by the way, it's shit. Also, the disrespect of Debbie Reynolds being in this movie. That actual queen on earth.
Miss Singing in the Rain herself.
Miss Singing in the Rain herself. Singing and dancing. She is a bad bitch. And she's playing like a borderline senile old woman in Halloween Town who just believes the evil mayor and whatever. Anyway, I hated it. It was 2 hours of my life I'll never get back.
Yeah, to me, if you like Halloween Town, if you liked Halloween Town when you were a child, it means you were probably rich because your parents could afford Disney Channel. And it also means that your parents wouldn't let you watch real scary stuff, or even, we're going to get into some of our suggestions. And I think some of mine are more like, okay, these are not family friendly, but kids movies that are scary.
That a kid could watch. And that's the thing, like, why is this so kiddie? You know what I mean? Again, like, you don't have to. I don't know. You don't have to patronize people. This is so just cheesy and silly and predictive and blah, blah. And I don't know. I mean, I need to survey my friends or come at us in the comments. Did you love Halloween Town when you saw it as a kid? Because I don't feel like even little Mackenzie would have liked this. I think little Mackenzie would have hated this. I was literally live tweeting this. I told you this earlier. Yeah. And the rage in these notes, like it gets progressively worse. Also, the main character girl, Marnie, I think she's like reason number 5,000. A lot of my friends were brats when they were kids. That girl is a little brat.
She is spoiled. Single parent household, giving her mom hell. God. Yeah, shitting just all over her brother, like being smart.
Just the smart. They said something I haven't heard in forever, but it was so accurate. The smart aleck.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. My parents called me that when I was a kid. I remember.
Me too. And I was like, God damn it. I hate that I relate to my parents in this moment. But they were so right. This girl is such a smart aleck. And I was like, I may have, Mom, don't call in. I may have talked to my mom this way, but if I did, I definitely got smacked.
Yeah. Okay. You know now, we probably should have clarified this at the beginning, but I'm in full assumption that we're going to be spoiling the hell out of all 10 of these films on the list.
Oh my God. If you haven't seen Halloween Town and this is a spoiler, one, you're welcome.
Yeah. Spoiler, don't watch it. Like,
two, also, why are you listening? Again, we will say this again. Why are you listening to a movie podcast about movies you haven't seen?
But yeah, with Halloween Town, I think there's two reasons why it would be okay to love Halloween Town. Number one, you were 7 years old. And number two,
and not a minute older.
Yeah. Number two, you are 6 years old. Those are the two good reasons to love Halloween Town. And I'm sure if you have nostalgia and you're thinking, oh, I loved that when I was a kid, go back and watch it and tell me it doesn't feel like they saw Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps and were like, well, what if we made a Disney Channel version of this and dumbed down everything and made it less scary and had a few decent costumes, but not really, because it looks like they just went to one of those theme photo booths at a wedding and it was like, everybody grab a prop, and they had a bunch of masks 100%. And that's what
they
this
went
looks
to Party City and bought these fucking costumes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is some garbage production value. The script is The actual plot is boring AF. They have a low budget Steve Carell as the mayor. I cannot with this movie. The only thing I liked about this movie was her nerdy fucking brother. Because they were talking about holidays, and I don't know if you caught this, but he was like, why don't you care about Arbor Day? What's so great about Halloween? One, I disagree with him about the Halloween situation, obviously, but adorable that this little fucking nerd loves Arbor Day. I was like, you and me both, kid. I literally hugged trees back then.
Yeah, I'm down to make it a bigger holiday in his honor. I think by that point in the film, I might have been a little tuned out. I also felt like he was the only comic 20 minutes in. That sounds about right, honestly. But he was providing a lot of the comic relief. But the problem was the actor wasn't that great. And it's not his fault. He's a child.
Yes.
But the delivery, I was like, okay, there's a writer who's trying really hard to make this funny.
It was a Disney Channel movie with Disney Channel actors. The only professional in this whole fucking thing was Debbie Reynolds, and I'm disappointed in her for doing it. They also ripped off, like to your point, they ripped off a bunch of stuff. There was like Mary Poppins vibes about her. And I know this, timing wise, this doesn't actually line up, but the bus also reminded me of the night bus in Harry Potter.
Yep.
But obviously they did it so much better in Harry Potter. And so it was just like, I just thought, the quality was shit. So again, even just from a streamability perspective, it's on Disney Plus and you have to pay for Disney Plus. So it's not super streamable. So weird reason to be on this list.
Yeah.
Two, I just think it's family for family's sake. It's not even the best Halloween family movie.
You know what it is? You know how people always, I know some people who love these ironically, but people always shit on Lifetime movies. This is the Lifetime. It should have been the Lifetime Halloween movie. If that doesn't summarize this like in a nutshell, I don't know what will.
That's super true. That is super accurate. Oh, Lifetime movies the worst.
It's like the most watered down. Let's take something that works elsewhere and we'll just water it down and make it like mundane and boring. I think the twists were all fairly obvious.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, this guy who's like giving candy to children and acting really weird about it. Oh yeah, he's the bad guy, you know.
Right.
So saw that coming. Anything else did anything surprise you in it? Were you caught off guard by anything?
Just the power of the word grounded was alarming. You know, do you remember grounded being
like,
oh God, I'm grounded. And I was like, you have been such a fucking brat all the way up to now. And grounded is what gets you. Okay. I don't remember that. I was grounded all the time when I was a kid. So
eventually you hardened up to it. Okay.
Because I'm just hardened to the prison that I lived in as a child for being a brat myself.
Yeah.
But no, I think the thing that surprised me the most that is one, it made this fucking list, obviously. But two, it's number 9.
Yes.
It's not even 10.
Like it could have been an honorable mention.
It could have been an honorable mention. It could have been 10. When we talk about what 10 is, I'm super offended, actually. I thought it was absurd.
But yeah, it could have been an honorable mention for, again, the 7-year-olds who are online reading this list. It could be like, hey, are you 7 years old and reading this list? Here you go. This one's for you. And they go, oh, yeah, thank you.
I was about to be like, what 7-year-old is online reading this list? And then I was like, every fucking 7-year-old has a tablet now. So,
yes.
Just kidding.
And they're all reading at this level. This article is not very well.
They're obviously Googling CBS articles.
Top Halloween films for children. Yeah.
We've given it too much credit to even discuss it for this long. But yeah, I think like of the family selections on this list, that was the one I hated the most.
I'd agree with that. I did laugh a little bit to myself at the end. By that point, my girlfriend had walked out of the room like 45 minutes prior. So I was just watching this by myself, which was very depressing.
She was like, I'm not doing
she
this
was
with
out.
you.
She was out. But by the end, when it turns out, oh, the brother, we didn't really discuss the plot, but it's like a family of witches, right? But the brother is the son is the only one that doesn't have powers. And by the end, he gets powers too. And he's like a warlock, sorcerer, witch, whatever you want to call it. And I thought this was going to be a very touching tale of a young man who doesn't understand the power of Satanism until the very end. And then he gets on board with it, but he's a man of science. So then he discounts and he's
like, no, it's like an electromagnetic field. And like shit happens. It's fine.
So I thought there was like some bigger metaphor at play, but I think that was just me trying to justify spending 90 minutes on this.
You were like, this is going to have an emotional payoff. This is going to be a cathartic experience. And then it shit all over you.
So what are you going to replace? I guess if we want to get into that, if you had to pick a replacement to take Halloween, not about being number 9, but just overall, what's something you would throw on the list that's not there?
Like Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, I think that's an obvious one.
Hocus Pocus is a perfect family Halloween movie that is a fucking classic and is frankly disrespectful to not be on this list. And also, I think is also streaming on Disney Plus. So even if you want to use streaming rules, like that's where it is. So yeah, I just think it's a very silly one to be omitted at all, but especially in replace of this one. And I think that, yes, there's like what I love about Hocus Pocus is that it has some adult references that as you watch them as an adult, you definitely catch them. But when you watched it as a kid, it's just a fun Halloween flick. And it's not like anything inappropriate. The effects aren't crazy. It's not scary. It has some like scary-ish scenes here and there. None of them are outrageous. I just feel like it's the perfect plug-in for something like that if you want a family-friendly Halloween movie.
Yeah. And so obviously, guys, listeners, as we go on, you're going to hear us mention films, and the ones that we suggest clearly didn't make the top 10 on this list. So it gives you a reason to get angrier and angrier as you're listening. If I had to pick one, and I tried to make a correlation between the movie that I removed from this top, because some of them I did agree with. The movie that I pulled out and said, I don't want to see this or necessarily every October, I tried to replace it with something similar. So you're going to see some parallels in my picks.
For a lot more thoughtful with this than I was. Okay, got it.
But for Halloween Town, I had such disdain that I was like, you know what? Halloween Town, I'm specifically going to make it a point to replace this Disney Channel bullshit with the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Because that is the opposite of Disney Channel. I'm like, let's just have a 90-minute musical that's basically all about fucking. I'm down.
I also respect that choice. I think that's a great substitute. And it's one that is not, yes, again, not on this list, also disrespectful. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I feel like I should give that a goog, but I mean,
think it's on Hulu right now. I think it's on Hulu currently. But notice I said currently, so that way if somebody hears this podcast 2 years from now,
they don't like direct
Joel
just scream at Lamar for telling him the wrong thing. Yeah, 100%. I think that's fair. I think that's a really good, let's just pendulum swing, go the other way.
Yeah.
And hit him where it hurts, basically. Yeah, no, Halloween Town sucked. And either of those I think would be a solid replacement. But I think the other one on the list that I also would rip off this list, just jumping around to, is still a family one, but less family-y than this one, The Witches.
Okay, this might be where we differ a little bit, but let me hear your take.
Okay, I need this out of my life. And it's not because, listen, I respect the shit out of Roald Dahl. I love Matilda. I was Matilda as a child. So let's have a whole episode about the gloriousness of Matilda. But this movie And I haven't seen the remake, so I'll also asterisk that there. Maybe the remake does a really good job of it.
I haven't seen it either.
Okay, so I don't know, but I will say that this version I really didn't like. The only thing I love about it is Angelica Houston is brilliant as per usual. I mean, she's always awesome. She's always incredible. But I also felt like it was cheesy. It was like the plot was weird. The acting was meh. The production value was meh. The mice were real cute.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the mice were really cute. I'm a sucker for anything fluffy.
I like that the entire basic third act of the film takes place as mice.
Mice.
And like little animatronic, not animatronic, but puppets, I guess.
Right, but they're pretty cute. They do a pretty good job of that. And so I do like them, like Stuart Little vibes. I don't know. It was real cute, but I just didn't like the movie on the whole, and I thought like the acting was weird, and even the origin story was weird, and I don't know. I also thought it was surprisingly gory. I don't even know.
I was fine with that. You've got Jim Henson on this. I don't know if you knew that, doing the special effects and the makeup and the costumes and stuff. So for me, I'm not going to go out of my way and say, oh, this is one of my favorite films. It did not make my top 10 in this case, but rewatching it today, I was like, God, I haven't seen this since I was a kid, but I forgot how scary some parts were. Like if I was a child watching them take off their wigs and
that was gross.
Yeah.
That was really gross.
But I'm like, that's what children's Halloween films should be. It's like, this is fun and whimsical, but it's also scary.
But you had seen this before, so I had not.
Okay.
This is another surprise, I think. I had not ever seen this before, and I don't know what it originally came out on or whatever. I mean, it's in my era. I should have seen it.
Yeah.
But I just never did. And so I think that's where I was like, I don't get it. You know, I don't vibe with it. Maybe it's a nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
But I did think that the makeup quality and things were really well done. They just grossed me out. It was just, I just found it gross.
I mean, that sounds like a personal problem.
It is a personal problem. But also, there were some other things that were real. The guy, Bruno's dad.
Yes.
Hits the shit out of the grandma. I mean, just calls her a crazy lady.
I mean, to be fair, he's terrifying his wife. She's terrifying his wife with mice in a purse and thing. So I would probably think she was a little off her rocker as well.
We assault people that we think are a little crazy, or do we just like walk away and de-escalate? I don't know.
I'm in the middle of a court case right now, so I can't comment on that question, but whatever you said.
Oh, it was such a product of the times, though, I think, honestly. But one of the things I thought was so funny is how fucked this hotel is after this situation. I was like, thank God this is not in the era of Yelp. Like, these people would be ruined.
Yeah, just so many hundreds of mice running around this building. And not to say that regular mice aren't sentient, but these are even more sentient mice. And yeah.
And I just love what I also thought was a little cute, I will say, is like how he was just like, I'm cool with being a mouse. It's fine. Like,
yeah.
Out of the gate, he's
I
just
forgot about how that played out. And I couldn't remember. I was like, does he get turned back? I feel like he does. But then they jump forward in time and he's still a mouse and he seems happy.
But then he says he's happy being a mouse. And his reasoning and Bruno's reasoning are like, no more school. They're like, hey, we don't have to go to school anymore. And if I had seen this when I was a kid, the little fucking nerd in me would have been like, what? They don't get to go to school.
It's a good thing this came out before Stuart Little then, because by the time Stuart Little came out, mice were being forced to go to school. So
which is rude, really. But at least he had some cute outfits. He had some cute first day of school outfits in Stuart.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's good that over time mice began getting rights in this country. I think that's very telling to look through that in cinema.
It's an important aspect of the civil rights movement, I think, honestly, is the rights of mice. But I think also the other thing, too, is that he does get changed back at the very end.
By the witch who was mistreated the whole movie and then got kicked out right before they all ate the soup and...
But also they imply throughout that like all witches are just bad. And I think that was the other reason I didn't like this movie is I have a strong affinity for witches. I have friends who are witches and they're making a mockery of what witches really are. And I get that. This is very tropey and it's like a Halloween
and
movie.
It's 1990.
And it's 1990. Like we're going to make fun of witches. I totally get it. But why the whole movie are there only bad witches? And then at the very end, she's a good witch. And I'm like... Okay, so she's just switching gears. And even her powers, like, I don't know if you noticed, like, the color of her doing her spell was green instead of purple.
Oh, okay.
So she was, like, light, whatever. So I just was like, okay, so we've switched gears and all of a sudden witches are good. Or just this witch is good. I don't know. But the other thing that was so weird to me, and it's, like I said, in my little fucking live tweeting here, In all caps, I said, did I just see a little kid's Down Under? Did you
when
see
he
that
transformed back into a human?
Yeah, it's like a little too close for comfort.
I've also never heard someone call it the Down Under.
Because I didn't know what to appropriately call it.
I don't want to dwell on it.
Areas that I don't even want to talk about. I was like, what do I call this that won't get me arrested?
Undercarriage. Undercarriage. Anything from 200 years ago you can get away with.
I do not want to see this child's anything without clothes on. And he was not clothed.
I realized they were playing pretty fast and loose with that.
They were, and I was like, and then it ends, of course, and I like that's my literal last note in this movie. I was like, what just happened? So no, I would rip this off this list.
Okay. This is like a deep cut only for folks who are familiar with The Witches or want to give it a rewatch. I personally think if you saw it as a kid, it's worth a rewatch. For me, the nostalgia factor is there. I don't think it's a brilliant film, but I was remembering the things that scared me when I was a kid. And I think that at the very beginning, first of all, I thought that his grandmother was also going to be a witch. I thought she was going to be a good witch, to your point of like, why aren't there good and evil? And that's why she was, why does she know all this backstory? Why is she, I guess because her friend or whatever. And that's what I was referencing was in the beginning. They talk about the friend that gets disappears and gets put into the painting and then slowly grows old and dies in the painting.
Which is
like,
some
as a kid,
shit.
That's okay, Halloween Town. Take a goddamn cue from this because that is how you scare a child.
Very Roald Dahl, though. He hates adults. And he makes crap that they do really bad and really gnarly, like abusive. Oh. And so that vibed with his style to me, but it was still gnarly. I was like, damn, we're just going to watch her die in a painting. And they have to go through their whole lives with that. Just watch her die in a painting.
But getting back to my original, before I went on this tangent, was the deep cut I was referring to. For those of you that are going to rewatch or are familiar with it, there is a weird, talking about the naked kid at the end. Ugh. When they are in their convention and she's talking about Bruno is going to come in and eat his child or start to transform into a mouse. First off, that scene's terrifying as well. Like all the visual effects are incredible in this. The whole when they start turning into mice and things, all that's great. But when he comes in and walks up and says, "Give me my chocolate bars" or whatever, Angelica Huston is doing something. I don't know what she's doing with her body. I don't know what her directorial advice was.
It is alarming.
She is
gyrating.
Convulsing and like excited. And I'm wondering what the director said. What should I do in this scene? And he's like, fake an orgasm. And it's like, what's going on?
She was literally, I was like, okay, what is the weird dance about? Oh, wait, it's not a dance. Ew. Yeah. Was like in my notes. It was very gross.
I mean, the fact that she played Morticia Addams, she carried some of that into this. I don't know which one came before the other, but there's a little bit of that going on.
There was definitely some of that vibes. But so this was ranked number 5 on this list, which again, I found offensive. Personally, I would yank it out. But so would you leave it on the list? Would you change its ranking? What are your thoughts?
I would take this off my list. No, I still think that if you have 8 to 10-year-olds that want a scary movie that's still semi-family, something along the lines of Hocus Pocus. This is probably scarier than Hocus Pocus, but not as charming as Hocus Pocus. Sure. I think this is a great family watch. It wouldn't crack my top 10. And when I was thinking of replacements, I was like, what can I throw in there? Hocus Pocus was one of the ones that popped into my mind. That's, again, I like it. Not one of my personal favorites, but I do enjoy it. So I ended up going with another one that's fun, kind of family friendly, but also a little scary. And I went with Beetlejuice. I think
that is a good choice.
Well,
that's not even on my list. That's one I knew there were like ones that I was still missing and forgetting, like I said. And that's a good one. And I like that one a lot.
It also, there's a little bit of a correlation in the special effects and in the makeup and the masks and the different the creature creations in that. I think you get both, but I think Beetlejuice is the better film. So I'll throw that on my top 10.
100%. I think that's a really good replacement. It has like similar vibes for sure, but it's just a better story and it's well done. And I still find that really enjoyable to watch and to listen to. Of course, it's like a fun soundtrack.
And the musical is coming to Austin in February, so free advertisement for them. What about you?
Plug.
What are you going with?
I don't really have a direct replacement. I didn't really like plan accordingly, like one for one. So I can't say I have.
Give us one on your list then.
But one of my other ones, I have a bunch on my list. So yes, we'll take any excuse to plug something else. But I would definitely, like I said, I would rip it out personally. But One of my favorite, again, this is not a one for one, this is going to feel like a hard left turn, but one of my favorite Halloween movies that's not captured really, I think, anywhere on this list is, or anything like it, I should say, is The Shining.
Okay.
Like,
yep.
why is The Shining not involved at all? It's a classic. I love anything Stephen King. That film in general is obviously beautifully done and like beautifully shot, and it's such an eerie, fun story, like interesting and creepy and psychological. Like just all my favorite things about something that's supposed to be scary is like Shining.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best horror films of all time. Oh. It doesn't make my October list just because my girlfriend and I agreed. Janelle is my girlfriend's name. I feel like I should just, so I don't have to say my girlfriend all the time. But Janelle and I agree that we like watching that one in December when it's cold outside because the entire theme of it doesn't feel like a Halloween film for me. So it's not that I don't think it's one of the best horror films ever made, but doesn't make my October cut.
To be like
all that snow we get in Austin.
Yeah, all that snow we're gonna get down here in the South. Hey, we've had a freezer too.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, the PTSD just kicked in. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's such a good one, but I do try to watch. That's one of those movies that's just so good though. It defies a period for me. It's not a Halloween movie. It's not just a Christmas movie. Yeah. It's just a great, creepy horror movie. And I just love ones that fuck with your head. Like, I don't.
You never really know what's going on with The Shining.
Like, I don't like anything that's as straightforward as all that. Right. Like some of these other ones that we'll probably talk about. I don't like the tropey Halloween stuff. I like something that messes with your brain, and then you leave it figuring it out, but not really. Not really understanding what happened, and I like that.
I think that actually you said there wasn't a correlation, but there is a naked old lady in The Shining, and in this, there's semi-naked old ladies and also a naked child, unfortunately.
There's too much
They're
nakedness
equally,
in the witches in general, I think is the conclusion.
Equally creepy, but I want to transition off of what you just said, because you said Halloween and Christmas. So I think there is a logical transition to another one that made this list, which is Nightmare Before Christmas. So what were your thoughts on that one?
Nightmare Before fucking Christmas. Does anyone not like this movie? That's my real question. Honestly, I don't think I've met someone who doesn't like this movie. And if they do, I don't want to meet them. I'm going to be honest. Like, you walked into my house, again, not a visual medium, but my whole front yard.
This is a podcast.
Is not Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
I love Nightmare Before Christmas. I think it's brilliantly done. And it's such nostalgia. And it made the list, which I thought was a good thing to begin with. I would have absolutely had it on my top 10.
Okay.
And it's number 3, which I respect, actually. I think it's a really good choice. But what did you think? Do you think it should belong here?
So
about to rage against all things family.
No, really like Nightmare Before Christmas, but I think the classic question is it a Halloween movie or is it a Christmas movie?
We could do a whole fucking episode.
I'm sure we will at some point.
We actually have a list of movies we need to do that about. Right. Die Hard conversation. We got a Harry Potter conversation. Yes. We got like the seasonal lineups. Do they work?
Yeah.
I think it's both. Has always been my argument. What do you think?
I agree that it's both, but I think whether it makes your October top 10 list is really where your heart tells you. And for me, I'm going to say, I would rather watch it in December to give me a taste of what I'm already missing from October by the time October 31st passes. You'll edit that little flub out. But, right?
Maybe.
Okay, we'll see.
We'll see.
But so after October 31st is gone, I miss October already. And so I like saving it for December. So not to say it is not incredible, but for me, I didn't keep it on my list.
So wait, are you that person who like got candy as a kid and put it in the fridge and saved it and waited?
Oh, no, like, I didn't have that kind of self-control. No.
Yeah, like you sound very disciplined to me right now.
No, my Halloween candy was gone in 2 days.
Oh my God, yes, same. So I don't understand how you could wait till Christmas to watch this fucking movie. I love it too much. I could not. I watch it both times of the year, though, I will say.
Yeah, I think it's another one like Die Hard where it's an action film. You could watch it anytime, but I'm going to watch it. Granted, it's set at Christmas, so I guess it's not a perfect, but it's like you watch that because it's anti everything else you're getting at Christmas time, but it's still a Christmas film.
It's super not a Christmas film. But this is, in fact, I think a Christmas film and a Halloween film. And I watched it both, but it would for sure make my Halloween top 10. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think there's all kinds of reasons we can go into, but I think one of my big things is like, Jack Skellington figures out where he belongs.
Yeah.
In the course of this movie. Yeah, he goes and he explores and he goes and has this little adventure. And by the way, completely fucks it up. But in that process, appreciates where he's from, what he's meant to do, what his real purpose is, where he belongs, all these things that I think are just make it more Halloween-y than Christmassy. If I absolutely gun in my head had to pick one, I would go Halloween-y.
Fair.
But I also think it just, contributes so well to the spooky vibes. I love the music.
What's your favorite song from the soundtrack?
Oogie Boogie.
That's my go-to,
well, here's the thing about me. I love villain songs, period. Villains always get the best songs.
Poor Unfortunate Souls.
Poor Unfortunate Souls.
Another example I can't think of, but
Scar in Lion King.
Be prepared? Yes.
Yeah. Jeremy Irons. Oh, sing to me, Jeremy. Always the villains have the best bad guy songs. And I would still say Oogie Boogie. I mean, the whole thing is beautiful. It's Danny Elfman, who's brilliant, who weirdly, even though he did an incredible job, I don't know if you knew this, did not get hired to do Ed Wood with Tim Burton after this because of this movie. Even though he did a great job, they had like creative differences making this and kind of went separate ways. And so he did not do it.
And have they ever worked together after
I was
that?
trying to think about this later. I don't think so.
Okay.
I can't think of one where they did. They obviously say glowing things about this movie, about one another, but I just think the process was very hard. I also heard that working with Tim Burton in general in this film was really hard. I mean, he didn't direct it, which is a common misconception. A lot of people think he directed it. It was billed as Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. But that was because Disney was like, we can't sell it as Disney. We have to sell it as Tim Burton's thing because
and then it'll
it's
make sense.
Too dark
why
for
it's darker.
Our kiddo people. And I think it was even released through like Touchstone or whatever. Like not them. I mean, it was them, but they're not through Disney especially. But Henry Selick directed it. And
I have never heard that name before. What else has he done?
Coraline.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he has a similar style, and I think that's why Tim Burton asked him to do it.
Okay.
But he couldn't do it. Tim Burton couldn't do it because he was doing Batman.
Okay.
And I think it was, but that's why there's a lot of contention, I think, on the film in general, and why he was hard to work with is he had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It was his story, and it was his design, and his characters, and all these things, but he couldn't actually execute it. And I think that made it really hard. But it still resulted in this very palpably Tim Burton type of film. But if you really think about it, it's a Henry Selick film as far as how it's directed, how it's produced, all of that. And Danny Elfman does the voice of Jack, obviously. Yeah. So it's theirs too.
So I'm flashing back to my decade spent working at Hot Topic. And that's not a joke. That's science. That's a fact.
I feel like you want to like hair flip every time you say that.
But if the hair that I have left,
for 10 years.
the hair that I have left, I will flip. But again, this is a podcast. You guys can't see this. But I just remember we had the soundtrack. Every October, it would be added as part of the Halloween playlist. So I do associate it with Halloween, even though in my head it's a Christmas film. And I remember the just shit tons of merchandise for this that we would get every year in mid-September. No. My point is that we would get a wall full of merch every September, and that shit would sell from September through Christmas.
Yeah.
It's the perfect merchandisable movie. And then January, nearly all of it would be gone. I completely understand why this is on the list, and I would not fault anybody who put it on their list because I think it's a great film. But for me personally, I don't watch it every October. That's why it doesn't make mine.
Every October. I also, another kind of like The Shining, Halloween lives in my soul. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll watch it all year long. So, but I also, if you think I don't have Jack Skellington and Oogie Boogie Christmas ornaments, you would be wrong because obviously it is also a Christmas movie. But I respect but heartedly disagree with your assessment that it should not be on this list. That's fair. It's okay to be wrong. Like it is. It's okay. But what did you replace it with?
So it was hard coming up with one. Originally, I was like, if you want another wintry type movie, you go with The Shining. But we've already talked about that. The Shining also, and why The Shining doesn't make my list. But
what is on your list? Okay, sorry.
I know. So for The Shining is one that I want to watch in December. But with it being a sort of poking and prodding around Halloween and the concept of these different and things that we do, rituals and whatnot, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and replace this with The Cabin in the Woods, because that one, relatively new, but that is a annual rewatch. As somebody who's a huge, oh God.
Fight. Let's fucking
go.
Oh God. No, you didn't bring that one up and think that was going to be the end of that, right? I hate that movie.
Okay, guys. Like for Lemar's opinion and comment for Mackenzie's, and we'll get to the bottom of this real goddamn quick.
I know that I'm outnumbered here. Let's be honest.
Okay, as long as you know that. I understand some people will not enjoy this film.
It doesn't have a great rating, to be fair, but I do.
Really?
No, it doesn't have a great review, because I've looked it up before, and it doesn't dated information asterisk. When I've looked it up in the past.
Are you talking like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb?
Just reviews, yeah. Like IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, I usually look at both of those, whatever.
What's your guess on what the over-under of the Rotten Tomatoes score for Cabin in the Woods is?
I mean, when I last checked it, what I knew it was like 56.
I think it's higher than that. Yeah, okay, guys, we're doing this in real time.
All right. But I do know. But so what I was going to say while you're looking that up is that every person that I have talked to about this, though, like on an anecdotal level, people that I know and friends that I know, they all like it. So I know that I am like in people wise on the audience meter, whatever you want to call it. I know that I'm outnumbered here.
Okay, you're very outnumbered because the Rotten Tomatoes score, critics are 92%.
Really?
And audience is 74. So 3 out of 4 people. One out of 4 is as nerdy as you and doesn't get it. And then I guess you could do IMDb, 7 out of 10, 70%.
I love that nerdy means we don't, like, as nerdy as you doesn't get it.
Every time you disagree with my opinions, I'm just going to throw an elementary school insult at you.
But also that nerds do fundamentally fucking get it. That's the thing about us nerds, is we get it. You don't get it.
No, you don't get it. Let's just really de-evolve this podcast into something that no one's going to want. We'll just bicker.
No one wants to watch.
Okay. So let's spin off of that because we have one more what I would consider
that we want to
family-friendly option.
Take it away, because I'm wondering where you're going with this.
Okay. The only other one on here that I think that I saw that was...
Are you talking about removing it?
Are you, the next one I'm going to talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So the last family-friendly / children's option on this list, coming in at number 4 is It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. What are your thoughts?
Again, we're going to fucking fight, because I cannot believe you want to take this off this list.
I watched it for the first time yesterday.
No.
And I liked it. But this is not quintessential viewing for me.
I need a record scratch sound effect. Are you fucking kidding me?
No.
You've never seen It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown?
I mean, I saw it yesterday for the first time, as I've already stated.
That doesn't count. I'm so upset right now. I did not expect that to be the one you hadn't seen. Wow. Okay. I obviously have very strong opinions about this, so I'm going to let you get yours out.
I honestly don't have super strong opinions. I think because I waited so long, if I had seen this when I was a kid, I would probably have that nostalgia factor for me that you were missing from The Witches, where I'm like, oh, I could see how this encapsulates so much about Halloween as a child. So I get it.
Advertisement for nostalgia, because I fundamentally do not understand watching this movie and not being like just overwhelmed with joy.
Yeah, I mean, I dug it. I thought it was weird that the only costume in this town was a ghost, but the families were giving out handfuls of candy, so it's not a money thing. I was just uncreative children, I guess.
These are very independent children. Show them some respect.
True.
They went out and they made their own costume.
And it is 1966. Half the country was like anti-Halloween at that point.
There was no parental supervision back then. Like, they barely remember they have children. So yes, they will give you candy, but they're like in between the Manhattan. They go keep drinking.
And anytime they talk to their kids, it's just...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of parents I want in my life. Leave me the fuck alone. I'm going to go get some candy. I'm going to make a costume. I'm going to hang out in the pumpkin patch till 4 a.m. and you're not going to come get me. Love everything about this. Speaks to my independent soul, but also I will say, obviously, there is some nostalgia factor here. But again, it speaks to the power of nostalgia, because it is so alien to me that somebody wouldn't watch this and just think it's perfection, because it's like 25 minutes of joy, first of all.
It's very short. That was actually probably the main reason why I was like, if I'm talking about films, I would like a little more. If I'm only going to get 10, I don't want to... I watch a lot of TV Halloween episodes around October. So I'll watch The Office Halloween episodes, Parks and Rec, Community. There's a lot of great ones. Brooklyn Nine-Nine has some good ones. So I could throw this on there, but I wouldn't consider this a top 10 film of mine. Maybe that's where it's coming in.
That's maybe the best argument I've heard so far, because otherwise I cannot agree. But I do think you're right. It's short.
Yeah.
But here's my question. Did you watch like Peanuts stuff when you were a kid?
Not really.
Like,
I've always been really finicky with like animation. So I was never a huge anime kid.
I wasn't
even Nickelodeon. It was show to show. Like different animations wouldn't get me, and Charlie Brown was one.
Cable? It's cable.
I don't know.
I don't know, but I never saw it because it wasn't on a fucking antenna, is what I can tell you. Yeah, we are. I will say, shout out to the Garcia clan. We are Peanuts obsessed. Like, it is a thing in our family. I have a Snoopy clock, like a handmade, custom-made Snoopy clock with my name on it that my uncle made me. We grew up on Peanuts everything. I have Charles Schultz's last comic framed, like when he retired. So yeah, So you got a little bit of bias. I have a lot of bias, is what I am acknowledging right now, for sure. But I also just, I don't know. I've never thought of this as particularly Peanuts.
Right.
I've definitely thought about it as Halloween, but they also have the Christmas special and all these things that they're very famous for as well. But yeah, I definitely have a Charlie Brown Peanuts bias, a Snoopy bias.
Yeah.
I also love Lucy, which is a divisive opinion to have in general. So yeah, I think that's so strange.
I mean,
I get it. It's a short film. It's not a film.
Yeah, but it's impressive. I will say that I think the thing I was most impressed by, because I went into it being like, there's no way this deserves to be topped. Like, I just went into it with that opinion.
Yeah,
but
you haven't seen it. You're like, no.
But the fact that it's 57 years old at this point, and I still watched it and was like, okay, I'm enjoying this. This is good. I wouldn't put Wizard of Oz in my top 10 films of all time for me personally, but it's like, that shit holds up, and that's what makes it great. Product of its time, Charlie Brown, 1966. There were jokes in here that I was like chuckling at, and I'm like, this was aimed at adults. Like, I'm imagining a family watching this and the adults getting some of the jokes about politics and religion and stuff like that. So I thought that was cool.
Lucy's great with that stuff. She drops a lot of those jokes, and she's like the resident psychiatrist. If you don't follow the comics at all, like, she's the one psychiatrist help 5 cents.
Yeah.
But she's like cutthroat too. But what I like about her in this particular one is she's very sharp and edgy, as she is in all of them. But she comes and gets Linus out of the pumpkin patch at 4 a.m. and puts him to bed, which I thought was super cute.
Yeah. I thought there was a missed opportunity for some emo band at some point. All Out Boy, Panic, the people who had really long song titles, to not use the line that Charlie says in this. I might butcher it a little bit, but he says, "I don't hate your dishonesty as much as I hate your opinion of me," or something like that. It's like,
you're like, this is.
I'm like, that is. Come on, MCR, throw this into your goddamn lyrics.
Yeah. And Charlie Brown is such an emo character.
Yeah.
Super is, like, in general in the comics, he's an emo kid, and
he's like a 60-year-old man in like a 10-year-old's body.
Balding.
Yeah.
Like, I can't.
And they make a joke about that in the film. Hey, be our model. And I was like, that's pretty funny. Like, this poor kid.
Oh, okay. I love it. I obviously think it deserves its place on here. I again, asterisk, I agree with you that it's not a feature film, but I think if we're just looking at top 10 for Halloween, this is for sure on my list. I watch it every single year at Halloween. So it's definitely on the list, if not even higher potentially. I don't know. But for you, it sounds like it wouldn't be on the list.
It wouldn't be on the list again, mostly because of runtime. Not that I might actually add it to the October rotation and watch it every year now. So I did enjoy it.
It's an easy 25 minutes.
Yeah. So I'll throw that on there. But as far as feature films go, this one was a tough one to substitute for, because
there's not a lot like it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go with the fact that there's like a balding character in both. I think that's really all I have to go on here. And I'm going to go with Shaun of the Dead. You got Simon Pegg there. You get the zombie references and whatnot. It's lighthearted despite having people getting disemboweled in it. So I think it's silly at times and lighthearted. So you get the laughs that you would get of a Charlie Brown. It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown.
You did get some of the same laughs, I think, actually, which is an interesting cross-genre appeal. Animated
and
Halloween
now
versus a live-action zombie.
And when we were talking about Cabin in the Woods, sorry to bring up a painful topic, but when you were talking about it being meta and referencing itself but not doing a great job of it, was this one of the other movies you had in mind that does it well, or do you feel like this does the same thing Cabin in the Woods does?
As far as Charlie Brown?
No, like Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead
versus
being meta.
Cat, because both of them are super, like this and Cabin in the Woods, both very meta, both playing on tropes of the genre. Some parts predictable, some parts set up for a laugh.
Maybe the difference for me, because I've been trying to think this through as you've been talking about it too, is I think maybe the difference for me is that I knew that should be funny when I started watching it versus I had no immediate reason to think that for Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
It's also written by a couple of folks who are not known for their comedy as far as Cabin in the Woods.
It was Joss Whedon and
he was one of them, but the other guy
Brian
too.
Something. Yeah. The guy that did Lost, or no. I might be making that up.
Okay, let's just look.
Let's just Google
I don't
lots
want to be
of things.
Let's see. Drew Goddard.
I think he was a writer for the TV show
Was
Lost.
he?
Yes.
I mean, that kind of, yeah. So he also, I think, didn't he do Jennifer's Body?
No, that was Diablo Cody. Because I just watched that a couple weeks ago.
Okay. But anyways, that vibe, I think, makes it clear. There's a clear vibe when it's going to be comedy, even just from the trailers sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that was super clear from the trailer, even if there was like a token one-liner. It wasn't like, oh, it's going to be a comedy. So maybe that's the difference going into them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I went into Cabin in the Woods with people just telling me, don't look at any trailer, don't watch anything about it, just go in. And all I knew was, oh, it's a horror movie. So I went in with that, and I was... Maybe, again, it's just a matter of how much we both consider ourselves fans of the genre, because as somebody who went in being like, oh, this is going to be the same as like the 50 other films I've seen, and having that like turned around. And then for you, it was like you went in wanting a scary movie, and that's not what you got.
I will say, too, to give Cabin in the Woods, I don't know, some modicum of credit, I'm not easily scared by a lot of movies to begin with. And so I don't particularly, that's part of, I think, why I don't generally like this genre, is that I don't find things often that surprise me. And that's honestly what I'm looking for on the regular.
And this didn't surprise you?
No, like I think I've seen a lot of movies, and we've talked about this before, where like when you see enough movies, you just see patterns. Like you're just more aware of where things can go, and tropes and archetypes and all these things. And so I feel like when I'm looking for, in general, any movie, but especially horror films or things that are supposed to shock and awe or surprise, I'm actively looking for something that does surprise me, does something unexpected. And I feel like I very rarely find it. And so I often write things off for that reason.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to get us back onto track, because I don't want to spend 20-30 minutes of this podcast talking about Cabin in the Woods, which wasn't even on the original list.
This is true.
So anything else to add about Shaun of the Dead? What are your feelings on that? Me adding that to my list. Are you good with that one?
I don't know that I would pick it as a Halloween top 10, but I think it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
I think it's a good movie, and it's very fun. It's funny. It's a fun movie. It's fun flick, fun plot. Simon Pegg is always great. Like I love everyone in that movie. And I will say too, just one nugget before we move on, I did not expect to like that movie, because I'm not a big like zombie person either, especially I find zombies to be very boring. Don't talk to me about World War Z. I can't. But I didn't expect to like it, and I liked it, and I thought it was really enjoyable. So I get why it would be on a list.
Okay.
I don't know about a Halloween list. But.
That's fair. Yeah. It's another one where it's a great standalone film without all the like meta-ness and the references and Easter eggs. But then when you watch it as a fan of the genre and you see all the little nods to, hey, we know that we are stealing from a bunch of other people's subject matter. You got the odes to, or the homages to Romero and to Fulci and all these other directors. So yeah, I love Shaun of the Dead. I realized making my sort of top 10 that there's a lot of horror comedy. And I guess that's just what makes something rewatchable for me, is I want to enjoy myself. I could throw something dark onto this list that's just miserable and grueling, and there's a couple of those that we'll get to in a second, but like when it comes down to it, if it's something I'm going to watch every year, I want to have a good time watching it.
See, and you'll find this in my film collection in general, I'm very light in the comedy department. Not because I don't like it when it's done well, I really do, but I think I have like really intense standards as to what is funny, which is funny in and of itself.
How many of the Grown-Ups movies do you have on Blu-ray?
0. Did you just say the Grown-Ups?
Yeah, Grown-Ups, like Adam Sandler.
I know what you're talking about.
I'll get them for you for Christmas.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, but no. Return to sender. No, I'm not great with comedy. I will say I'm like an intellectual comedy kind of person, which means that for some of you out here there, that means it's snobby comedy. And I think that's probably a fair assessment because like I don't slapstick shit doesn't make me laugh. Like and that's another reason why I didn't think I was going to like Shaun of the Dead. There are definitely ones like that I enjoy, just comedy movies that I was surprised that I liked. Like a Wedding Crashers, for example, is not my typical, I thought that was super funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is very hit or miss for me with comedy. But when I find a good one, I do really love it. But when I look at Halloween stuff specifically, I'm definitely not looking for comedy. I'm
like
looking for
you
like
want to
creepy,
be
psychological thriller, dark and twisty. That's the vibe.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we're going to have very different lists, which is going to be fun. We have made our way through all 4 of what I would consider to be the family-friendly / child Halloween films that are on this list. So do you want to go ahead and we can move into some of the more grown-up stuff?
I think we should talk about the ones that we're not surprised are on here.
Like the ones we're not really going to argue over at all.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think there are a couple contenders on here too that were like, I don't know, but there's, or not even, I don't know, but just surprising. But there are some that are not super surprising. So I'll start with one.
Okay.
Which is Scream does not surprise me being on here at number 10.
Yeah.
I do think it's weird that it's number 10 with the other ones we have mentioned, but I'm not surprised at all that it had made the top 10. I think it is a classic. I don't think it's particularly arguable that it's a classic. It's a very different type of classic, I should say, because of course there's old horror classics, some of which I have on my list that we'll talk about later. But I think it's a modern classic, probably best way to put it. It did a lot for the genre. It spawned
revitalized the genre, like late 90s horror. It was basically this,
Scream did it.
The Sixth Sense and Blair Witch Project were the 3 that 90s horror. There was this gap in the early 90s where they were really struggling. Like all the popular characters from the 80s, your Michael Myers, your Jason Voorhees, your Freddy Krueger, were struggling at this point, and it needed a jolt in the arm. And I think this film is part of what gave it.
I totally agree. I think it's something that, like you said, completely revitalized the genre. And it was, I don't know which one came out first, but it was actually the same year as The Craft. And that's another one for me that is a quintessential Halloween film. And again, I don't know which one came first, but they both made this effort to revitalize by having these people you could recognize in the story, these like teenagers or people who are supposed to be your contemporaries, supposed to be your age, right, in theory, and you can relate to the most, but putting them in these really like alarming situations and then running with it. Whereas when you look at an older classic film, that was not always the case. There wasn't particularly a style in that way. It wasn't like accessible to contemporaries necessarily as far as being a story they could relate to versus hanging out with a bunch of your high school friends where somebody's out to murder you is like just close enough to possible to be creepy. And like you said, revitalize your genre, but also kick off this whole franchise.
That's still going today.
That's still going today. We just went and saw the most recent one and it was really good. And I do think we can go have a whole separate podcast about that where there was a dip in those. But I do think the first one does a lot for the genre. Very enjoyable. A rewatch for sure. Over maybe not every October, but I mean like, in general.
Honestly, I think I'm a fan of all but one of the Scream films. I know they're not perfect, but I think every October you can count on me to watch at least one of them. Like I will mix them in. Typically it'll be the first one just because it's so groundbreaking. The performances are incredible. You got Matthew Lillard just killing it. Even Jamie Kennedy before he turned into like
Lillard so much, but he does a great job.
Okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
No, I mean I just don't like love him as an actor. But because he plays this twat, he plays a very annoying fucking guy, and he does it 100% of the time. So I'm sure he's a very nice man in real life, but like when people are typecasted, you have a very hard time not associating them when they're typecast.
But so you've got Wes Craven revitalizing. Not that he needed it, but it's like. He hadn't done anything, I'm not going to say relevant, but nothing that had been mainstream popular in probably, I'm going to guess, a decade or so at this point. I might be wrong, but it was cool to see him breathe fresh air into his career and put this out. And just, I'm aware that this was not the first movie or first slasher even that had multiple killers. Like I know that if you Google it, there's probably some other film where there was more than one killer, but this threw 12-year-old Lemar for a fucking loop.
Yeah.
Of just There can be more than one
One.
murderer?
Yeah. So 2 nuggets here. One, I think it's, again, I think we agree totally. It's a classic. Also, if you didn't have a crush on Skeet Ulrich in the 90s, what are you doing with your life? Because he was in both of those, by the way, that I mentioned. He was in Scream and in The Craft. I was forgetting about that.
He was also in a heist movie that took place in an ice cream truck, but I can't remember what it was called. But you Google it, Skeet Ulrich. I'll give you $1 if I'm wrong. But he was in.
Now we're gonna Google Skeet Ulrich.
Skeet Ulrich ice cream truck movie.
Jesus. But yeah, so he's a great 90s actor that we love to love, and then these movies are great for sure. But you said something where, like, through the lens of 12-year-old Lemar, this was very shocking.
Yeah.
And I think we should probably harken back, maybe I should have done this at the beginning, to the reason why young Mackenzie is not alarmed at most of these things. Your girl went to a quote unquote daycare, and I say that with a lot of generosity. Went to a daycare that when I was very young, where the person who ran the daycare was the grandparent of a bunch of people at the daycare. So, grandkids are different with their grandparents, right?
Yeah.
And this was their house. And so we would sneak into the grandma's room and watch her movies, which were all horror movies. All of them.
She's got good taste.
She's got great taste,
Yeah.
but I was also 5. My first encounter with horror flicks was 5 years old, Freddy Krueger.
Okay.
It, Candyman. I saw some dark and twisty shit from a very young age. And I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my parents for a long time. It took forever for my parents to find out that this was happening.
Yeah.
And I had already seen all the Freddy Kruegers. I had already seen It. I had already seen Candyman. I'd seen a bunch of Stephen King shit. So I just have a very high tolerance from a very young age.
So it's funny because my first, and I still remember to this day, my first encounter with what I would consider to be horror. And it wasn't as blatant as yours where you're literally watching horror movies. But when I was 5 years old, this might have been a couple years after the fact, but Michael Jackson's Thriller music video was still playing on, I don't know if it was MTV or what, but anyway, I would force my Nana, my grandma, to play that for me every time I went over to her house, despite scaring me, and I knew that it would frighten me. I loved it. So I think that was my first taste of it.
I can't. I love it. But maybe that's like why I've loved spooky stuff from such a young age. Like it didn't particularly scare me.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that did get me, I will say, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is It. The original It fucked me up.
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry is a genius.
Yeah.
Genius, respect, love that man. But that one definitely fucked me up as a kid. That's one of the ones that like gave me a clown phobia, as many people do, but gave me a clown phobia for a very long time.
Now Tim Curry's got 2 shout outs on this podcast because you just called him a genius and he got to kick Halloween Town's ass
with
on my
horror.
list.
Yeah, because he's brilliant.
Yeah.
Also, let's talk about Clue. Anyway, he's incredible. We love him. But yeah, I was creeped out from a very young age by that. And I think that sort of, changed the game for me a little bit and made me like really into this kind of stuff, to be honest. But
nice. Just a really quick update here for you. I got some late breaking news. Tim Mason, in parentheses, Skeet Ulrich, and the driver of a stolen ice cream truck, Arlo, parentheses, Cuba Gooding Jr., get tangled up in a plot which they must keep a chemical weapon from blowing up and killing millions of people. Audience reviews for Chill Factor. So go ahead and watch Chill Factor. Add it to your October Halloween playlist.
I want to know, do you have the rating for Chill Factor?
It is a 5.2 out of 10, which is better than I would have thought, honestly, on IMDb.
Wow.
If you Google, is Chill Factor a good movie? Critical reception. The film generally received negative reviews. It has an approval rating of 10% based on 79 reviews. Average rating of 3.6 on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's not a reputable website.
Wow. All right, them's fighting words, but I can't wait to watch that gem.
Yes.
Moving right along.
But let's keep talking. I want to talk a little more about Scream. Okay. I feel like should we go into a whole, I feel like Scream is one of the easy ones. Like we know it's good. If I were doing if I took my personal top 10 and actually put them in order, which I didn't for the purpose of this podcast because we're discussing them out of order, Scream would be in my personal top, looking now, it might be number 1. It's definitely in the top 3. because that movie, I can rewatch it like nonstop. I know what's going to happen, but it's just such a fun film.
I think it's really good. I totally agree. I don't think it would be number 1 for me. It would definitely be in the top 10 though.
Yeah.
For sure be in the top 10. I didn't do the order for this podcast either, but I think it would definitely be in the top 10. But I say that with a very long list of ones that did not make this list. Right. Including The Craft, for example, which is similar era, similar vibes, but I think groundbreaking in a very different way.
Yeah.
And I loved The Craft. And I learned recently about 2 people I care about deeply who haven't seen it. So if you haven't seen it, I'm really upset with you. Go watch it. It's so good. We don't need to spend a ton of time on it.
Yeah, we're not going to because you didn't put it on your list.
It's on my replacement list, which we have been talking about.
So in case one of your other movies gets like injured, The Craft can jump off the bench and
listen, it's on my list, my top 10 list.
Oh, it is on your top 10 list.
The Craft is. For sure.
Oh, okay. Then I take back my initial response. I thought you were saying, oh, it's not on my list.
No. It's not on this list. Let me rephrase because this is not my list. It's not on the CBS.
How deep are you?
list.
Did you finish your first class? I finished mine. Did you finish yours?
I have basically finished
mine.
Okay.
So, all right. Just checking.
Yeah. But I have my list. It is definitely on, but I haven't. The reason I asterisk that is that I don't even know if mine is 10. Mine might be 15. But it's definitely on the
list. Those aren't the rules.
I didn't put them in order, like we said.
But so let me hear more about what you love about The Craft and why people who haven't seen it should watch it then.
I think The Craft it's like a chick flick without being a chick flick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the typical chick flick. It's like a 90s girls movie, but like with a dark twist. And those were my people back in the day. You know what I mean? I didn't want to watch. I mean, I of course loved lots of 90s movies. She's All That. She Drive Me Crazy. Some of these cheesy with the prototypical popular girl and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
This turned that on its head, made it edgier, made it darker, made it stuff that was interesting to these women, these girls, which is very different. It was like witchy and spells and spookiness and edginess and individuality. And those were the things that I really identified with and still identify with. I don't find some of the prototypical, like interesting stuff by default engaging or something I want to watch all the time. And I watched this and I thought, these are people that are not your normies, not people that everyone likes, not the typical movie lead or story lead. You've got some edgy or loser-ish type of characters leading a story. And of course they grow over the course of the movie and they don't stay that way.
Yeah.
But that's part of like their growth and part of what's enjoyable about watching it.
This to me feels like almost like the antithesis or like a response to Clueless. It was like Clueless was like this very lighthearted, bright film. Also a fun, really great film. Yes. But this felt like a response to that. But this felt like a response to that of let's take that and show the other side of the coin of it almost feels like two different
Jane Austen, let's do Edgar Allan Poe. And I support the shit out of that. And I'm a lit nerd, so I'm gonna make book parallels and obviously Clueless is Emma. But I just mean I loved an Edgar Allan Poe is what I'm saying. Like, I wanted to read an Edgar Allan Poe when I was a kid, and I definitely read a Jane Austen, but I also read the shit out of an Edgar Allan Poe. And I love a Sherlock Holmes and a mystery and a dark and a twisty and whatever. So that's just so my vibe. And so this was one of the first ones that kind of made that heroic, made that interesting, made that a lead character, not like a side character.
Right.
Not only was it a lead character, it was several lead characters. And then the effects are cool. Some of the trippiest shit happens in that movie for kind of back then, like some of the effects in the house and what she does to her hair and like the spiders and the snakes and all these cool effects that I think, again, just made it groundbreaking in its own right.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah. I almost feel like this and Clueless are like two completely different Breakfast Club characters.
They are. And like, again, we could have a whole conversation about that because until you said that just now, I hadn't even thought about them as two sides of the same coin, but they really are. And I think they appeal to you both, but for different reasons. And so The Craft would definitely be on my list. And I actually haven't watched it yet this month, but it is in the pile of movies over there ready to watch. So I'm ready.
Awesome. All right. So totally get where you're coming from on The Craft. I have not seen that movie in probably a couple decades now. I do mean to rewatch it. I remember fond feelings of it, so we'll definitely check it out. how do you feel about wrapping this first half episode up? We've gotten through 5 so far. So for those of you keeping track at home, we talked about Halloween Town, The Witches, It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Scream. And you want to put a bow on this one, and then we'll be back in a week?
I feel like we meant to lead with this, actually, that we're pretty sure this was going to be a 2-parter. And here we are for sure at needing to take a break. So we're going to have a belated Halloween surprise for you down the road. So we'll do part 2 of this one, finish out our list.
You just ruined the surprise. You said it was a surprise, and then you told them exactly what it was. For somebody who likes Halloween and Christmas, you're doing a bad job.
They're going to be very upset when we're not done. So, I just want to be real with you. I always hate when I'm left hanging. So for now, tonight, go have a drink and watch a thing.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. See you next week.